So a quick recap of what we've done so far. In the first video, we set up the email automation so that this property specific information gets emailed out as a request to the different utility providers. In our second video, we set up our form so that the utility providers can click on a link, fill out the form, and automatically bring the information. The last step we want to go over now is updating our workflow so that we can see under our property data what information's already been received and tell what's still outstanding. To do that, I'm going to add a new column to our utility provider data, and it's going to be address linked. We'll link it to the property data. So link to another record, property data, create field, and we don't need to link anything this time, so we can skip this. We can see that this is linked to our property data, and it's automatically created a new column in our property data table, which is utility provider data. And this is what we'll use to tell if the information's been submitted. So we're going to do this by setting up another automation. So automation 1 was us setting up our first automatic email, and now automation 2, create automation, will be utility data check. Our trigger for this one is going to be when we've received the forms from the utility company. When that happens, a new record is created in that table that we created for the utility data. So when a record is created for the utility provider data, we want to update the record. The table will be our utility provider data. We're going to go with Airtable record ID. So when the utility providers submit the form, it creates a new row in our utility data table, and one of the columns that we're editing is in the row that's just been added. And the field we want to edit is going to be our linked address. And we're going to be updating it with the address, which might seem a little strange because we're updating the linked address with the address. So let's go back to our data so I can expand on that. What we're doing with that automation is when someone submits information to that form, the address is going to come in from that form. And then there's also going to be this column called address that gets filled in from the address over here, which is directly linked to our property data table. So it'll update both on the utility provider data and on the property data, where the address here matches with our utility provider data here address. And the reason that you can't just make this address the linked column is because the leftmost column is your unique identifier column, and you're not allowed to make those linked. You might have noticed that right now our check is only going to work if the utility provider were to type the address identically to how we have it written here. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to get the link to our form, and I'll show you how we can pre-fill information. So if we go to this form, this is the link we've been sending out in our emails. You can pass information into forms using a question mark, and then in our case we want to pre-fill the address. So if you go pre-fill and the field we want to update, which in our case is address, you can go prefill underscore address equals, and then whatever you want to prefill it with. If I to prefill our address, then this is the URL that would get us there. I'm going to make a new column, which is our URL prefilled. And rather than having to go through and paste a specific URL for every property, we'll make this a formula. And you can see we had our form link, that prefill address equals, and then the address. And because in a website you can't have things like spaces and certain characters, I don't actually know what all those rules are, and I don't want to write out all of those addresses. So I'll replace this with a formula, which is encode URL component. And instead of having a specific address, I will make this address, which is a field that we're picking up. And since we're combining some written text and a formula, I'm going to use concatenate to bring those two together. So concatenate the text that I want and our formula together. And you can see the preview is already telling us what it will be. So address preview is 123 King Street West. I promise you this is the only coding related part of this video. So we can check out our fancy pre-filled URL and see that, cool, we have all those different addresses. And we can also test it by clicking on one and seeing where it brings us. Nice. And to share this with the utility providers, we're going to change our automated email to use these links instead of the one we were sending out before. So under automations, we'll edit our email automation and replace the text in here, which was this link, with our new link. If you recall, the way that we add data into here from information that we have in Airtable is we just click on this little plus button, and we're going to make it the URL pre-filled. Update, and let's check if it worked. Trigger email sent, checking my inbox. We're expecting 789 Bloor Street. Cool, 789 Bloor Street. Moment of truth, 79 Bloor Street. Dropping in our sample data, ignoring the fact that I only need one set of sample data. So we'll just pretend that said Bloor Street and timestamp and property data that's been provided. When you're done testing and you want to run it for real, you can clear these off, delete these fields, and update our automation so that rather than sending all these emails to our test email or to ourselves, that we're actually sending it to the different utility companies. We can change that to the email from the utility provider value and update. I hope you're able to follow along and build this automation with me. If you run into any issues or have any questions, feel free to message me directly or comment at me.